In chapter 440, we discovered through Cheadle that the nation of Kakin transitioned from a socialist system to a parliamentary democratic system. Democratic countries rely on a principle called the separation of powers. This principle ensures balance and prevents the concentration of power in the hands of one party. The powers are divided into three parts: the legislative power, responsible for making laws; the executive power, responsible for enforcing these laws; the judicial power, responsible for applying the law in case of violations or disputes. Although Kakin has an unusual system for selecting the next king through the succession war ritual, the current king has not abolished the laws in place on the ship, nor has he allowed the killing of princes or their guards. This means that despite the succession war being organized by the king, the general laws still apply, and anyone who kills a prince will face justice and the law. The succession war should be similar to the game Among Us, where the princes and their guards compete in a game of cunning and strategy. The reason for this is that King Nasubi does not want the winner to only possess strength, but he also seeks someone who is intelligent and cunning. In chapter 382, Nasubi confirmed this when he told Halkenburg that the ability to adapt to changes and events is an important trait for a king. Thus, even though the succession war is part of the official system, the general laws still apply to everyone aboard the ship. Anyone who breaks the law will be punished by the judiciary. If you search for the term judicial power in any dictionary, you will often find an important phrase attached to the explanation, which is the independence of the judiciary from the other powers to ensure justice and protect citizens' rights. Togashi has applied this concept precisely on the ship through the judicial division, showing that this division is independent, even from the king himself. So before we begin explaining chapter 402, let's recall some events from previous chapters in a simple summary, as they will help us understand the story better. In chapter 371, after the silent majority puppet killed its first victim, suspicion fell on the maid who had seen the puppet. At that time, the third prince's guard contacted the judiciary and requested the arrest of the sixth queen, the mother of Kacho and Fugetsu, because the maid worked for her. That's when we were introduced to the character responsible for the judiciary, Cleopatra, the chief judge, who rejected the guard's request and only sent investigators to Kacho's room to investigate. In the following chapter, Kaiser, one of the key figures in the judiciary, appeared, meeting Tserriednich in Princess Kacho's room for the first time. In the judiciary, there are three main characters to focus on: Cleopatra, Kaiser, and Steiner. Steiner, despite being a foreigner to Kakin, currently holds a position within the country's judiciary. He is the one who read the Don Freaks' notes and will accompany the Hunter Association and beyond to the Dark Continent. Now, let's move on to chapter 400, where after Kacho and Fugetsu's failed escape attempt, we found Tserriednich, Kaiser, and Kacho's guardian beast in an interrogation room belonging to the judiciary to investigate the escape attempt. What's remarkable here is that Kaiser, despite being a representative of the law and expected to be neutral, decided to help the twins due to his feelings for Tserriednich after hearing her play music. However, Tserriednich, thanks to her ability to read heartbeats, felt that Kaiser's heartbeat was strange and concluded that something mysterious was going on and that everything he was saying was a lie. Things became even stranger when Kaiser went to Steiner and gave him instructions on what to do if Prince Benjamin's guards or the royal army entered the judiciary's headquarters. Steiner was surprised by this, so Kaiser explained that it was possible for Benjamin to impose martial law and take control of the entire ship. Martial law allows the military to take control of the three powers, executive, legislative, and judicial, in times of emergency or crises faced by the state. This law was applied in the Chimera Ant-Arc when Pito took control of the fake Diego's body in East Gorto, where the Chimera Ants imposed military rule as part of their selection plan in episode 99. From this, we learned that martial law is one of the strategies Benjamin could use to gain an advantage in the succession war and kill the princes. Currently, the only thing that could lead to the implementation of martial law is what's happening in the lower levels due to Morena. But in the latest chapter, another reason appeared, which I will discuss in my analysis video for chapter 403. Finally, in the same chapter, we noticed that Fugetsu's mental and physical state deteriorated as she was surrounded by evil spirits and some insects. This led us to believe that the culprit could either be the first prince's guard with the B ability or the second princess's guard, who was tasked with cursing Fugetsu. We also recall what happened to Prince Halkenburg after returning from his father's chamber and his determination to enter the succession war. He shot his arrow at the first prince's guard, Shikaku, and took control of his body. After his guard took control of Shikaku's body, Halkenburg tried to figure out how to use his beast's powers and how to benefit from them. Then, Halkenburg ordered his guard, who was controlling controlling Shikaku's body, to go to the 7th prince's room, shoot himself, and shout, "Long live Prince Benjamin!" After the guard did so, his soul returned to his original body, and Halkenburg began to explore and test his ability. When Benjamin saw Shikaku's death, he realized that the 9th prince had become his biggest threat. He and Balsamico decided to send another guard to Halkenburg's room to learn exactly what Halkenburg's ability was. After sending a guard named Vecht, they heard over the radio that the guard was now fighting Halkenburg. The last message from the guard was that Prince Halkenburg was invincible and that attacks were useless against him, and then the connection was lost. It seems that Halkenburg had shot him with the arrow, just as he had done with Shikaku, and taken control of his body. Benjamin, whose ability is to inherit the abilities of his soldiers after they die, knew that the guard he sent hadn't died yet, since his ability hadn't transferred to him. Balsamico, with his sharp mind and analytical skills, figured out some aspects of Halkenburg's power. First, the attack uses Hatsu Resurrection. Second, Halkenburg sacrifices or uses his guards with each shot. Third, this attack cannot kill princes, as the Nen beasts cannot kill or attack princes. Therefore, Benjamin came up with a plan to defeat Prince Halkenburg. He would file a complaint with the judiciary regarding the disappearance of the guard he had sent earlier, and accuse Halkenburg of the crime. And indeed, the judiciary, led by Steiner, the reader of Don Freaks' journal, came and took Prince Halkenburg to the judiciary's investigation center, where Tserriednich and the twins were also present. Halkenburg would now face trial for the disappearance of the 1st prince's guard, away from his own guards. Balsamico stated at that moment that this was his chance to eliminate Halkenburg, as he would be present in court as a lawyer. In that chapter, we didn't know what he meant by that, but in the latest chapter, it became very clear. Now, we are ready to summarize, explain, and analyze chapter 402, titled The Message. The chapter begins in the 3rd prince's chamber, where we see the prince talking to the guard who had been learning Nen in Kurapika's room. The guard tells the prince that princesses Tsubeppa and Wobble had agreed to withdraw and relinquish their positions in favor of the 3rd prince, provided only the 3 of them remain in the succession war. They had signed a treaty confirming this. The 3rd prince is surprised that the 5th princess Tsubeppa has decided to relinquish the throne to him. This is not in her nature, as she despises the higher-ranking princes. He comments that this withdrawal benefits him, but wonders if one can truly withdraw from the succession war. This is an important question, and we know the answer is no, based on what happened when the twins tried to escape. The 3rd prince's situation is dire for 2 reasons. First, his inability to use Nen, and second, the conditions his Nen beast requires in order to activate its ability. Togashi hasn't yet clarified these conditions, and although the prince gave 2 coins to his guard, nothing has happened so far. We recall that the first coin was taken by the 1st prince's guard without anyone noticing, and the number on that coin increased after 10 days. He also gave 2 coins to the guard who goes to Kurapika's room, and 1 coin to Tserriednich after visiting her. The scene then shifts to the 5th princesses. We remember from the previous chapter that, thanks to Longhi, an alliance was formed between the 2 princesses. Tsubeppa mentions that Tserriednich didn't attend the last banquet, meaning he didn't accept her offer for an alliance. She can't remain idle because the 1st prince's guard, Reihan, who possesses the predator ability, is lurking around her. Togashi reveals the reason behind her surrender to the 3rd prince. The purpose of this move is to make the 1st prince believe she has surrendered to the 3rd prince, so that Benjamin shifts his focus to 3rd prince instead of her. At the moment, she asks her guards to cooperate with 3rd prince guards. Her Nen beast appears, and Reihan sees it. As we've repeated before, Nen beasts take their abilities and characteristics from the prince's personalities. Tsubeppa is a very cautious person, so her Nen beast adopted this trait and remained hidden. Tsubeppa also realized that Reihan, the predator, was in Prince Salsail room. Prince Salsail didn't attend the previous banquet due to illness, but Tsubeppa knows his character well, and that he loves attention and would have attended, even if sick. She deduces that Sali must have died, and that Reihan either killed him or caused his death, since he was in Sali's room. Now that Reihan is in her room, Tsubeppa realizes she is next. Her current plan is to shift the 1st prince's soldiers' focus onto Churai. Notice that her Nen beast appeared at the moment she signed the peace treaty. Reihan noticed this too, and concluded that her beast's ability was conditional, but this is incorrect. Tsubeppa's beast has a cooperative ability, similar to Kaluto Zoldik's maid, Tsubone. Reihan's ability, Predator, manifests after he analyzes an enemy's ability. The more accurate his analysis, the stronger the predator becomes, capable of defeating the enemy's Nen beast. If his analysis is wrong, the predator weakens, and if he summons the predator and it fails fails to kill the beast, Reihan will be unable to use Nen for 48 hours. So, in this chapter, we can say that Tsubeppa has won the information battle. The scene shifts to Balsamico, who is preparing some kind of weapon of mass destruction. It's a viral weapon classified as a failed experiment due to its numerous flaws, but in this war it's perfect because it's difficult to defend against. As I mentioned earlier, Halkenburg has been taken to the judiciary's investigation department on charges of causing the first prince's guard's disappearance, and there will be a court session where Balsamico will act as a lawyer. He plans to use his close proximity to Prince Halkenburg to release the viral weapon. This was his plan when he told Benjamin, "Leave it to me." The scene then moves to the fourth prince. The last time we saw him, Theta had tried to kill him, and he discovered his own Nen ability. At that time, the prince was focused on two things. The first was being able to enter Zetsu in less than the blink of an eye. The second was inviting Tserriednich to his chamber due to his admiration of her ability. We see that the prince is still training in Hatsu, using a method that distracts him. Zetsu requires immense concentration, as it involves suppressing one's aura within the body. Tserriednich attempts to overcome this by performing a distracting exercise, running on a treadmill while playing video games and holding a conversation with his guard. He does all this while simultaneously training to use Zetsu, and he manages to break the 10-second barrier, to the astonishment of his guard. The surprise doesn't stop there. The guard remarks that it took him 6 months to reach that level, even though he had mastered Nen since birth. Yes, he is one of Beyond's offspring and one of the curse bearers. Like Longhi, it's even possible that Theta might be one of them as well. What I still don't understand is how this guard hasn't realized the curse within him, like what happened with Longhi and Makaha. Was there something Longhi did that led to the discovery of her curse, or was it something else? Or perhaps his curse is weaker so he hasn't noticed it. Anyway, the guard continues speaking and says something else important. If Theta's words are true, the prince has acquired the ability to use Zetsu, which is one of the rarest types of abilities. When I first read this, I thought the guard was referring to simply entering the Zetsu state. I wondered, what's so rare about that? Even Gon and Killua learned Zetsu in one night. But what the guard meant was that Zetsu is now an actual ability for the prince, not just the act of suppressing aura. When you think about it, we've seen abilities based on Ryu, Ken, Ko, and Shu, but we've never seen an ability that relies solely on Zetsu. Some time ago, someone asked me how Tserriednich was able to use his time-based ability, since we know that Nen users choose their abilities, not the other way around. Now that has been explained. Tserriednich's ability is incredibly rare and uses Zetsu as a core element. The guard presents a solid hypothesis, suggesting that perhaps Tserriednich's Nen beast stores Nen energy in its natural state and then releases it when the prince activates Zetsu. Most likely his hypothesis is correct. Everything about Tserriednich is becoming more terrifying, and I believe Benjamin is in for the shock of his life soon. There's another important conversation we need to mention from Balsamico when he was analyzing Prince Halkenburg's ability earlier. He stated that they were sure Halkenburg had not used Nen before boarding the ship. They likely knew this through Yorkov's ability, and I suspect they applied the same method to most of the princes, including Tserriednich. That's why Benjamin hasn't paid much attention to him despite their mutual hatred. So when the first prince discovers that his full-blooded brother has started using Nen and possesses such a terrifying ability, he will undoubtedly be shocked and may pay the price for underestimating him. Back to the events. Tserriednich's head guard, tasked with bringing Tserriednich, reports that she is still being detained by the judiciary due to suspicions of her involvement. He also reveals something crucial, that the first prince desires Tserriednich's ability as well, which is why he has stationed his personal soldiers at the entrances of the judiciary. Now, we suspect that Benjamin's true motivation for doing this is his desire to enforce martial law and seize control of the judiciary, rather than just seeking Tserriednich's ability. This prompted Kaiser to give Steiner instructions in case the army raids the judiciary. Things are a bit murky, and it's hard to figure out the grand plan of all these characters. What I love about these recent chapters is how the level of mystery has increased, which has doubled the enjoyment of reading. The scene then shifts to Tserriednich's holding cell, where Kacho shows Tserriednich a picture of Fugetsu's back, which has a bug bite mark on it. Tserriednich mentions that this bite is actually a Nen ability, because no one touched Fugetsu after the twins were arrested in the judiciary immediately following their escape attempt. She realizes that this ability is a trap, and asks Kacho if Fugetsu said anything strange that might lead them to the user of the ability. Kacho replies that Fugetsu mentioned she could use her magic worm ability more than once a day. Tserriednich then instructs Fugetsu to use her ability, knowing it will reveal 2 doors. One of them is a trap set by the enemy, and it should never be used again, as it causes addiction and drains aura. This is what has left Fugetsu in her current condition. The plan now is to track down the user of the ability and stop them. Their starting point is to find a lead that will reveal the identity of the Nen user behind this ability. Kacho responds that she has the lead and reveals that the culprit behind all this is Prince Lazarus, the seventh prince. Her reasoning comes from the fact that Lazarus is heavily funded by the mafia and drug trade. Since the Nen beast draws its power from the personality of its prince, and Fugetsu is currently in a drugged state, it's highly likely that Lazarus's Nen beast is responsible for her condition, and Kacho's deduction is accurate. Previously, we suspected that Benjamin's guard, or someone from the second Princess Camilla's team, the Fugetsu, was responsible, but there was a flaw in that theory, which was that the judicial division detained the twins immediately upon their return, leaving no time for those soldiers to act. Even if we argued that a curse could affect Fugetsu from afar, according to Granny's words, it would take a long time for a curse to activate. We now know that Lazarus's Nen beast's ability matches Tserriednich's description. Its form is insect-like, and we saw a swarm of insects around Fugetsu, so this explains the bite and clarifies everything. Now, pay attention to this small detail. In chapter 400, several princes requested to meet Tserriednich and have her play for them, including the seventh prince. Tserriednich suspected that one of these princes was responsible for Fugetsu's misfortune, trying to pressure her into using her musical ability. Indeed, she started meeting these princes or their representatives, thinking that one of them would reveal the truth and offer terms to remove their ability from Fugetsu. However, none of the princes hinted at such conditions. But now that she has discovered that the seventh prince was the culprit and said nothing during their meeting, this means he is unaware of what his Nen beast has done. What happened to Princess Fugetsu was caused by the Nen beast's ability, which functions as a trap. This trap embodies desire and lust. We know that Nen beasts cannot directly attack the princes, so the seventh prince's beast did not violate this rule. Fugetsu herself fell into the trap by choosing the fake door. At this point, Kaiser, Tserriednich, and Kacho come to the same conclusion. The only way to save Fugetsu is to eliminate the seventh prince, causing his beast's ability to disappear. Before explaining the plan to kill the seventh prince, let me reiterate that Kaiser is not a reliable ally, as he is being manipulated. Tserriednich knows this but will pretend to comply until the right moment to stop him arises. Killing the seventh prince is incredibly difficult, especially since Basho, a friend of Tserriednich's, is protecting him. So, most likely, Tserriednich will tell Kacho, who has the ability to phase through walls, to deliver a message to Basho. Now, as for the decoy plan to kill the seventh prince, it goes as follows. They will enter the prince's room, render him unconscious using Tserriednich's ability, and then Kaiser will transport him to the lifeboats. He will die just like Kacho did, and the cause of death will be attributed to a drug overdose. Even if the prince's guards testify that they were attacked by Tserriednich's music, Kaiser can request samples of their urine or saliva, which will show traces of drugs, discrediting their testimony. To execute the plan successfully, they will carry it out during the interrogation of Tserriednich and Fugetsu, giving them a solid alibi. However, there's one missing piece to this plan. With teleportation abilities, the user must have visited the location before to teleport there, as we've seen with Nov and Luini. A user can teleport to a random location they haven't visited only once, which is what happened when Fugetsu teleported to the third layer and when Luini teleported to the fifth layer. But outside of this, visiting a place for the first time through teleportation is impossible. So, the current obstacle in the plan is figuring out how to get Fugetsu into Lazarus's room. To solve this problem, Kacho comes up with a brilliant idea. Since she is technically dead, she will pretend that she left messages for her siblings, asking Fugetsu to deliver them upon her death. If these messages are endorsed by the judiciary and pose no threat to the princes, they will likely accept them. Thanks to this plan, not only will they gain access to Lazarus's room, but they will also be able to place teleportation doors in most of the prince's rooms. Kaiser strengthens this plan further by suggesting that they use these messages for another purpose, to incite conflict between the princes by spreading secret information the judiciary possesses about each prince. These secrets run deep within the royal family, and spreading them would surely create enmities and disrupt the princes. The downside of this plan is that it might lead to the princes targeting Fugetsu later, suspecting that she knows the contents of the messages. Thus, Kaiser decided to protect Fugetsu and not return her to the first layer until the succession war ends. Her next interrogation will take place in the clinic under the pretext of receiving treatment, and guards from the judicial division will be assigned to monitor her. With this, all preparations for the plan are complete, and they begin executing it. The first prince they gave the letter to was Benjamin. He indeed allowed Fugetsu to enter his room to deliver the message. Finally, we saw Prince Benjamin's Nen beast move, suppressing the spirits hovering around the princess. As it perceived them as a threat to Benjamin. So far, we've only lacked information about the first prince's Nen beast and the 14th princess's Nen beast, which Togashi likely keeps as wild cards that will tip the scales and change the course of events. From this encounter, we get two crucial pieces of information. Fugetsu has only 10 days left to live. The letter Benjamin received and read will significantly alter the course of events, but not in this chapter. Expect its impact in the next one, Chapter 403. As we know, Benjamin is currently in a VIP area, essentially under house arrest, due to the second princess's incident and the death of Musa. Benjamin asks Kaiser, "Haven't you found Musa yet?" Kaiser replies that they've thoroughly searched the first layer, but found no trace of him. The only remaining option is to conduct a simultaneous search of the prince's rooms. Benjamin, knowing that Musa is dead and that Camilla killed him, responds that such a search would be futile, as the princes would turn to the judiciary to prevent it. The current unclear priorities in enforcing the law, which conflict between the military's authority and the privileges of the royal family, are causing complications. Benjamin then says something important. Musa's case doesn't reach the level of a crisis that would justify the military overpowering the royal family's privileges and enforcing martial law, which we mentioned at the beginning of the video. When Kaiser heard the word martial law from the prince's mouth, he realized that Benjamin did indeed plan to use this law to take control of the judiciary. When Benjamin's guard, Tserriednich, mentioned that Benjamin had placed his guards at the entrance of the judiciary, the true objective wasn't to obtain Senritsu's ability, but rather to prepare for the enforcement of martial law at the earliest opportunity. We'll delve deeper into this idea in our analysis of Chapter 403. Now, let's move to the next room they visited, the room of their target, the 7th Prince Lazarus. Lazarus reads the letter and is shocked by its contents. He asks Fugetsu, "Did your sister tell you anything about these letters?" She denies it. Lazarus then comments that the reason is likely because her sister didn't want to implicate her in the dangerous content of the letter. He hands the letter to Kaiser to read, as Kaiser is an important figure in the judiciary. The letter contains leaked, sensitive information about the 4th Prince, Tserriednich. However, Lazarus wasn't fooled by the letter and remained suspicious. He wanted to clear any doubts by handing the letter over to Kaiser. Lazarus's skepticism stems from the fact that Kacho loved her sister dearly. Instead of the letter being gossip about the 4th Prince, it should have been something to protect her sister, Fugetsu. He concluded that Kacho wrote different letters to each prince to sow discord, while perhaps asking the 1st prince to protect her sister in exchange for some information. Lazarus's suspicions were somewhat correct, and he didn't fall for the fake letter, thanks to his cautious nature. Nevertheless, the primary goal of entering Lazarus's room was achieved. Upon leaving the room, we witnessed a kind gesture from Basho, who gave Fugetsu a talisman to reduce the damage caused by the spirits, granting her more time to live. After delivering the letters, they returned to the interrogation room in the judiciary, where we learn very important information that will turn the events upside down in the next chapter. Halkenburg has unleashed his ability and collapsed into a coma. Among the letters they wrote were two that revealed all the information the trio had gathered. One letter went to Kurapika, and the second will be sent to Prince Halkenburg when he wakes up. The content of these two letters involves a critical secret about the 1st prince, all the terrible aspects of Tserriednich's character, and the truth about Halkenburg's birth. Additionally, there's one piece of information that will completely shift the succession war. The princes cannot leave the ship. What will become of Halkenburg and Balsamico? How will Kurapika handle this information? And what is the secret behind Prince Halkenburg's birth? We'll analyze and explain all of this in the video for Chapter 403.